All right, hi everyone. Thanks for coming today to class. We are going to start out with the Dice app today. So today's class is going to be about making applications that complete a task for you. So we can code a lot of different types of applications to solve a lot of different types of problems. So maybe you can brainstorm after class a few different ideas that you have for apps that you could code or someone else could code that would be really useful and helpful. So, for example, some apps that are out there, there's apps where you can play games with other people. So that's a cool way to interact with people where you don't have to be face to face. There's apps where you can communicate with people. There's even apps where you can get food delivered to you. There's all different kinds of applications in the world that are really useful, whether it's for fun or for function. So what we're going to do today is make one that's for fun. We're going to start by making a dice app. So let's say you want to play a game that involves dice, but you don't have any dice at home. What you can do is you can use this dice app to use as a basis for a game that you know how to play, or you can modify it to turn it into an actual game that you can play. So it's, like I said, it's just a starting point for this app. You can totally change it to make it exactly what you want it to be. If we have time at the end of class, we are also going to make a color picker app. We might have to just do half of it and finish it another day, or you can finish it on your own. And that one's pretty fun. It's just a way to find more specific colors than what you would find, let's say, over here on the color picker. So you could easily change these bars to be higher or lower, but this one is going to allow you to have a little bit more freedom and a little bit more control over what color exactly you're creating. So we're going to start with our dice app. So everyone should have a new advanced sketch open and ready to go. You can name it dice app, you can name it advanced class, you can name it whatever. And for this project, I just made my grid. Let's see. I made mine 550 by 350. I always change it to be a little bit smaller so it's easier to use. And I zoomed in on my canvas, but let me know if you need me to zoom in any farther so that you can see what I'm doing. Hopefully this should be big enough. Remember that you can always pause this video, you can rewind it if you need to, and then catch back up to us live or just keep watching. And you can ask any questions in the chat. So at any time if you have a question, whether you're paused and you're a little bit behind the live, you can always ask your questions. All right, so to start, we are going to create two variables, and variables go right in between function setup and function draw. We're going to name one dice1, and we're going to set this equal to just quotation marks with nothing inside. The reason that we're doing this is because we're going to have a random number appear on our dice, and this is how we're going to display it. So we're going to do this for dice 2 as well. So this project is just going to have 2 dice. Like I said, you can add more. You could use just 1 if you wanted to, but I'm going to show you how to do it with 2. So we have variables for dice 1 and dice 2, and make sure that you don't put a space between dice and 1. It won't work. And then they're just equaling quotation marks with nothing in between them. So just like how we would do text, we would like write something inside of here, but in this case we're going to leave it empty because we're going to use it later on to call our dice. All right, so now we're going to get into more of the design stuff. So that's just setting the groundwork for the actual project. Now we're going to work on the design. So I'm going to just choose a light blue color for the background. So add a background in. Right. And then we are going to make 2 squares for our dice, and then we're going to make another rectangle towards the bottom for our roll button. So let's get that set up. I'm going to just do a white fill for this, and I'm going to do, give me just 1 second. All right, so we're going to do a rectangle. I'm going to do mine at like 50-50. I might move them around a little bit. 150 by 150. Yeah, I think I'm going to have it right there. and then I'm going to set my next one up at 350, 50, making it 150 by 150. You can make yours smaller or bigger. You can change where they are on the canvas. Doesn't matter to me. Make it look however you want it to look. I'm also going to just curve the edges on these, just make them look a little bit more like dice. So if you add a number onto the end of your rectangle, then it'll curve the edges. So if you have 5 numbers total, so you have the x coordinate, the y coordinate, the width, the height, and then if you add a fifth one, it'll round the edges. And it just makes it look a little bit more like an actual dice. You could also play around with the stroke, changing the color. You could play around with the stroke weight to make it thicker. You could take away the stroke, the outline. It's totally up to you. I'm just gonna leave it. All right, and then we wanna have one more rectangle, and I'm gonna put that one, let's do 150, 250. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm gonna make it 250 wide and 50 tall. See how that works. Maybe 100 tall. Yeah, and I'm just gonna curve the edges of that one as well. All right, so the way that this is laid out right now, we're going to have our dice 1 here, our dice 2 here, and then our roll button here. So basically what we want to happen is when we click on this roll button, a random number will appear in both dice 1 and dice 2. So that'll make this a usable application that you can actually use for a game. All right, and you can also fill in these rectangles. Feel free to change them, make them smaller, bigger. Like I said, doesn't really matter. Yeah. All right, so the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to use text to display our dice numbers as well as the text that we want to be displayed in our roll button. So we want that to say either like roll or roll the dice, or you could even have it say like press here or something like that. Doesn't really matter. So I am going to go down here. I'm going to just change my text size to be a little bit bigger. I'm going to start with like 50. It's probably going to be too small, but I always start smaller and then work my way up to bigger. And then I'm going to change my font. And I always use Impact. I just think it looks the best. Sometimes I know that not all fonts will appear on all types of computers, just like emojis kind of change from computer to computer. So your text font Impact might not show up. Try different ones. You can use any web-based font. You can also just Google web-based fonts. If you have one of our Code Naturally workbooks at home, there's a whole list full of web-based fonts that you can use. So I'm going to use text, and you can also skip the text font and the text size. You don't have to do that. And then I'm going to display my text, and I'm going to just have it say roll. And then let's just put that at 200, 300. All right, and it's not showing up because I still have my fill as white, so I need to add in a fill color for whatever color I want the text to be. And just as I thought, it's a little bit too small. I think that's gonna make it too big. Yeah, let's do 100. That might even be a little bit bigger than I want it to be. There we go. So it really depends on like the font that you're using and how long the word is, where exactly you're gonna put it. So I always just kind of generalize like, oh, it'll probably go here, and then you just go back and fix it to get it exactly where you want it to go later on. All right. And then you guys let me know if you're all caught up and you're ready to go at any point and you feel like you're just waiting around. You can let us know in the group chat if there's anything that you want us to cover in a class, if there's a topic that you really want to cover, or a specific project you've been thinking about that you don't know how to start. If you have any project that you're working on, like I said, that maybe you've hit a roadblock with, you can always contact us and ask us for help. I'll go over how to share projects later on, but there should be a link in the description that has a link in the description that will take you to a type form where you can submit your projects for us to look at, and you have an option there where you can say, I need help, or I'm all good. I just wanted to share this with you to show you. All right, so now we have our role written in there, and the next thing we want to do is we want to use our text, and we just want to display dice 1, and you just want to put it, I'm just going to put it at 100, 100. Like I said, later on, we will actually change this. What you can do if you really want to make sure it's in the right place is you can go into dice 1 and put a number in those quotation marks. And I can see, okay, 100, 100 is not where I want it to be. I want it to move down a little bit. Let's make it 175 and then call it a day. Or 160. I always get really particular when it comes to that kind of stuff. I think design is my favorite part of this. Let me know what your guys' favorite part is. And then we can do the same thing for dice 2. I'm just going to go down. I'm going to say text dice 2. And this is not going in quotation marks because we are calling back the variable. So that's the reason that we do not want to put in quotation marks. Because if we did, it would just say dice 1. It wouldn't actually display what I want dice 1 to display. Okay, so now we have our dice 1 and our dice 2 displayed. Remember, if you used a number as a placeholder, to delete it. You don't want a number in there, you don't even want a space in there, you just want 2 quotation marks right next to each other, empty. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is make this roll button an actual button. So this one might take a little bit longer for us. If you feel like you're really good at making buttons, you can just cruise right through this. If you feel like you need a little bit more help, that's also fine. Oops. And we can go through it. We're not going to take too long on this. But I always put some comment lines in front. There's also a way that you can do it with an asterisk and a slash, but I just think it makes most sense to keep it all the same way for you guys. So if you know how to do it another way, that's awesome. I hope that you use that. I'm just going to do it this way because that's how I always do it, and it's just familiar to everyone who's watching. So I made these comments because the second that you start typing in conditional statements, the computer will get confused and it'll say, I don't really like what you're doing, and it'll put up an error code, which is not what we want. So what we want to do is get it so that we can actually see our button that we're trying to make. So that's why I use the comment lines. So I'm going to say if, and then parentheses, mouse X is greater than whatever the left line is. So in this case, it's 150. Yours might be different. So just keep an eye on it and make sure that you know what yours actually is, because it might not be the exact same as mine. So if you copy my code, it might not work. Okay. So we have if mouse X is greater than 150, which is the left line, and mouse X is less than whatever the right side is, so mine is 400. Okay, and then you want to make an opening curly bracket and go down. And then I'm going to say if mouse Y for the next one, so if mouse Y is greater than 250, and mouse Y is less than whatever the bottom line is, so mine is 350. And then we also want to say if, and then in this one you want to say mouse, capital I is capital P pressed. And you don't want to put a space between those words. It will not work if you do. So now that we have all of these, I'm just going to go through and make sure, okay, everywhere that I made a what's it called, curly bracket, did I make sure that it was closed out? So I have 1, 2, 3 opening and 1, 2, 3 closing. So that is right. And if you just highlight everything, press Control and then press the slash button, it'll actually get rid of all the slashes that you just created. All right. All right, so now I have if mouse X is greater than 150, the left side, less than 400, which is the right side, greater than 250, the top, less than 350, which is the bottom. And then if I press my mouse, what do I actually want to happen? So this is where it might be a little bit unfamiliar for you. It's pretty much what you would expect, but just slightly different wording than you might be used to. So right in this, these nested conditional statements that make an on-screen button, we're going to say that we want dice1 to equal floor, parentheses, random, parentheses, 1, 7. Let's break that down. So we want dice1, which is right here, to equal, floor just means rounded. So floor means rounded. And then in parentheses, random, 1, 7. So random 1, 7 is a random number between 1 and 7. And what's actually going to happen is you'll see every time I press this button, it's going to be a number that's less than 7, not including 7. So it'll be 1 through 6. And the reason that it does this is because floor rounds the numbers, but it rounds them down. So you'll never actually roll a 7. So if you wanted the numbers to go up to 12 instead of 6, instead you would write 13 here. So you always want it to be one number higher than what you want your maximum to be. So I'm going to keep mine going from 1 to 6. All right, and so this one is working. Every time that I press, it is creating a random number, which is awesome. So then we want to just do the exact same thing for our dice 2. So I'm going to go down, say dice 2 equals floor, parentheses, random, parentheses, 1, 7. All right, so now we have our 2 dice done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just go over everything that I've done so far so that we can all double check our work. So first thing that we did is made a variable for dice 1 that's just quotation marks. Remember not to have a space in between there. You don't want to have a space. You don't want to have a number. You just want it empty. We made our variable for dice 2, which is the exact same way. We did a background. We put in a fill command that just filled in our rectangles white. And we made 3 rectangles. We made one for dice 1, one for dice 2, and then one for the roll button. I put in a fill for my text so that it wouldn't be white and it would be black so I could actually see it. I made my text size 90. I made the text font impact. Like I said, yours might not work as impact, so just try it as whatever you want. I put in a text that said roll that was in the lower button that I made. Then I made a text that would display dice 1 in the middle of this top left dice. And then I made one that would display dice 2 over here on the right. And remember, you don't want to put these in quotation marks. If I were to just put this in quotation marks like you do with normal text, it would actually say dice 1 in this. And then when I press roll, nothing would happen in this one. So you want to make sure it's not in quotation marks because we want to use that variable. All right, so then going down, the last thing that I did was make my button. So when you're making your button, the 3 most important things are to make sure that you're using 2 and signs. You want to make sure when you're doing mouses pressed that you're doing no spaces, you're doing a capital I and a capital P, and you're doing curly brackets that all match up. So I have 1, 2, 3 opening, and I have 1, 2, 3 closing. And a good way that you can test that is you can go up to the top, the line across from the top if statement that makes up your button, and you can click it, and if it closes all up into this nice little compact box, then you know you did it right. And there should also be 1 curly bracket there at the end, which is the one that closes up all of function draw. Okay. All right, so now we have a working dice app, and we could also make it so that we display the total on here, but I want to make sure that we have time to do our other project as well, and that one just takes a little bit longer, so I think we're going to just leave this as is for today. So if you guys have any last minute questions about the dice app, ask them now. And then remember that you can always rewind, pause the video, you can always ask for help in the comments, and if you share your projects in the type form and say help please, then we will know right away that you need some help and we can help you with it. All right. So I'm just using our workbook to guide us through these projects today, just making sure that I don't forget any of the steps. So I'm going to go over to the color picker. You can use this time to catch up, or if you're all caught up and you're ready to go, let me know that let me know if you have any ideas for projects. All right, sorry, it seems like I went a little bit fast through that one, so I'll try to go slower on the color picker one. But just keep in mind, anytime you need help, if you're all right, so seems like a few people are still needing a little bit of help, so I'm just gonna slow down, back off, and help you guys for a second, and then I'll go on to the color picker. If you're completely done and you're ready to move on to the next thing, that is awesome. Take this time to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It really helps us out a lot if you guys subscribe. And it also helps a lot if you guys let us know what projects you want to do. So every week we come up with an idea, like a kind of theme for class. And some of our projects are recommendations from students, and some of them are things that we come up with. But we really like the projects that students come up with or that students specially request, because we know that that's something you're working on that you want help with, or just something that you're interested in. So we really like those projects. So let us know in the comments if you have any special requests. All right, I found the color picker. I'm thinking that next week what we'll do is create a paint app where you can choose different colors, and you can also choose different sizes for a paintbrush, basically. So we'll try doing that. If you guys want help sharing your project, I'll go over that really quickly. Give me just 1 second. Okay, so to share your project, you want to press exit. You want to click on the 3 little dots next to your project. Press the share button. You'll click generate link, and then you'll just copy this link right here, and then you'll share it with us via the link in the description or the link that I posted in the chat. All right. All right, so it seems like a few people are ready to move on, so I'm just going to move on to the next project, but please ask for help if you still need it. We are more than happy to help you out in the comments and help you out through the link that is in the description. So I'm going to start a new sketch. I'm I'm just gonna give it a random name and put it in advanced. If you guys didn't know, when you click on this little button right here, it creates a random name for your project. I'm gonna press go. And I always make mine a little bit smaller. I think it's just easier for you guys to see, and my screen is pretty zoomed in, so it makes it a little bit more organized for me. So your screen might look a little bit different than mine, which is totally fine. All right. So for our color picker, the basic idea here is that our colors are created by putting together different values of red, green, and blue. So for example, for this one, it's 102 for red, 0 for green, and 51 for blue. If you were to have something that's really green, it's going to have a higher green value. If you have something that's really blue, it's going to have a higher blue value. You get the idea. And the numbers go from 0 to 255. All 0 would be black, and all 255 would be white. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a red, green, and a blue displayed on here with plus and minus signs that we can control the number with. And then we're going to have our background be the color of the numbers that we have displayed. So for example, if we had 255 clicked all the way on red and 0 on the other two, our background would be red. And this is really helpful when you're doing a project and you're like, oh, I need a shade of green, but I don't know exactly what shade. You can click through until you find the right shade of green that you're looking for. Or maybe you just want a kind of random color, you can do that as well. So I'm just going to check really quick, see if anyone has submitted a project that they need help with. And it looks like we are good, so I am going to go ahead and start with this project. So we're going to start by creating some variables. I'm going to move this down. So we're going to start by making a few variables. So I want to make a variable for R, setting it equal to 0. And that's how we're going to increase and decrease our R value. Okay, so then we want to do the same thing for G, setting it equal to 0 as well, and then the same thing for B. So now I have a red, green, and blue value that I can change. Right. All right, so now we are going to do the setup, which is, same thing that we did last time, except in this project we don't want to put a background in yet because our background is going to be the last thing that we put in so that we can see the colors that we're displaying. So we are going to make 9 rectangles, I believe. We're going to make 1, 2, 3. I'm trying to figure out how I want to lay these out. Maybe I'll put them up here. All right. I'm just going to make that 600. Just give me a little bit more space. Okay, so I'm going to make a rectangle at 50, 100. That is 150 wide and 50 tall. I'm just going to start with that, see if I like the way it looks, and then you can always change it if you do not. And I actually think what I'm going to do is make this 650 wide. Yours might already be at 1,000 wide, which is just what it's automatically set to. Doesn't really matter. I'm just changing mine up a little bit. Then I'm going to put this at 300. Is it 300? No, 250. 250, 100, 150, 50. And you want to have 3 of these. Okay, so my next one's going to be at 450, 100, 150, 50. So I'll give you guys a second to catch up with that. It's much easier if you just copy the numbers that I chose, but feel free to do it your own way. You don't have to do it the same way that I did. You just want to have 3 rectangles. They can be anywhere. So then, and you'll notice that the y, width, and height are all the same for those. All you have to change is the x value. That's how I was able to do them so quickly. So then what you want to do is you want to make 2 rectangles underneath your display. It's basically just a display box that will be a plus sign and a minus sign. So I'm going to put mine, I'm going to go 100, 200, and I'm just going to make it 50 by 50. Okay, and then I'm going to put another one at 100, let's see, maybe I'll do 275, making it 50, 50. Okay, and this project will be a lot easier if you just label everything. So I'm going to go through and add some comments. You don't have to do this, but I recommend it. So I'm going to say red display, and then the next one's going to be green display, and then the last one will be blue display. Remember that you can always pause this video and catch up later. You can rewind if you need to. So I'm going to say red, plus, and minus. Okay, so basically this one's going to display our R value. This is going to, if we press it, it'll increase it. If we press this, it'll decrease it. So then we want to do for the next one, green, plus, and minus. And we want to do the exact same thing. And like I said before, it's really easy to do this because our y, width, and height will all be the same from the last one that we did. All we have to do is change the x value. Oops. And you can even copy and paste here if you feel like you need to catch up. That's a really good way to do it, as long as you make sure that you change everything that you need to change. It can be easy sometimes when you're doing copying and pasting that you forget to change just one thing and it'll mess up the whole project. But I think that we are all well equipped to copy and paste if we would like to. All right. Okay, so now I have, this is going to display the red value. This will display the green, this will display the blue, this will be a plus, minus on each one, and then the background will be the color that we choose eventually. We're going to do that very last. All right, and if you need help, make sure that you share your projects, and if we have a little bit of time at the end of class, I will share some of your guys' projects that are finished that you wanted to show off, just if you want. It's not a requirement. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is make it so that I can see that each box is labeled appropriately. That might be a little confusing, but you'll understand. So I'm going to say display R value, and I'm going to say text. I'm going to put an R inside of the quotation marks, and then right after the quotes, I'm not going to put a comma, I'm going to put plus lowercase r, because that's what I used for my variable. And then I just want to tell it where to go. So I'm going to start with 50, 125, see how that looks. And I'm going to change the font and the text size a little bit. Don't feel like you have to do this. This is a good spot for you to pause and catch up on some lost time if you feel like you're falling behind. You do not have to do this. And you can always skip it now and change it later on if you want to. It's really up to you. So I'm going to change that to 50, make it a little bit bigger, maybe 45. Move it down a little bit. And it should be good. I'm going to change my R to be 100 just so I can see what it would look like at its biggest, because at most it'll have 3 digits. So I'm just going to move it over to the right a little bit. Instead of 50, I'm going to try 70. Maybe like 80. Yeah, I think that looks good. So I'm going to change that back to 0. And like I said, I just use that to test out what it would look like with 3 digits. You want to make sure that you don't have a rectangle up there that's too small so that you can't see all 3 of those digits. So what I just did, I changed the text size to 45, changed the text font to impact, and then so far I've displayed my R value. The next thing I'm going to do is display my G value, which I'm going to do the exact same way. Quotation marks around the G with a colon, and then I'm going to write plus G, then I'm going to give it a comma, and I'm going to say instead of 80, it's 280, but the Y value is going to stay the same. There we go. I'm going to do the same thing for B. And remember that you do not have to write the comments that I'm writing in. If you want to, go for it. You don't have to. So remember, we're writing text, we're putting parentheses, putting quotation marks, and I'm putting B with a colon next to it. And then I'm going to add lowercase b to it. All right, and then that one's going to go at 480, 145. So let me know in the comments how you guys are doing, if I'm going too fast or too slow. I'm trying to go a little bit slower for this one. Remember that you can always pause the video, you can rewind it, you can ask me to restate something in the comments if you need me to just go over something again. Yeah, let me know. All right. And then this part is going to be a little bit easier. We're just going to add the plus and minus signs to all of the boxes. So we're just going to put text and then a plus sign, and we're going to put it at, let's see, 125, 245 maybe. A little to the left. And once you do one of these, it gets so much easier to do the rest of them. Okay, and I'm just getting mine exactly in the center because that's just the way that I want it to look, but it does not matter. You can have yours all different sizes, you can have them different locations, it does not matter. So I had that one at 245. And then once you have one set of plus and minus buttons done, it'll be a lot easier for you to do your next set. Okay, so now I have a plus button and a minus button. They're not exactly in the center, but it's okay, they don't have to be. And I'm going to just show you guys how you could copy and paste this to make it a lot easier for you to do all of this so that you can speed through it a little bit faster if you feel like you need to. So I'm looking over and I'm saying, okay, the Y values are going to stay the same, but the X, it looks like it's about 200 spaces over, so I'm just going to add 200. It's going to be 312 and 320 for these. Super easy. That's all I had to do. For this one especially, it's easy because you don't have to change the text at all. All you have to do is change the value, and the way I have mine spaced out, I'm just adding 200. All right. So far, so good. Let me know how you guys are doing in the comments. All right, so now we're getting into a little bit of tricky business, but I think that you guys are all up to the task. It seems like everyone's doing good. So this is where we're going to make these, plus and minus buttons actually work. So we're going to make buttons. And we're gonna say if, I'm gonna say mouse X is greater than whatever the left side is. We just did this, so you guys should be all brushed up on this. So if it's greater than 100 and, oops, that's not how you spell mouse. Mouse X is less than the right side, which is 150. I'm gonna make my curly bracket and then move on to mouse Y. If my mouse Y is greater than 200 and mouse Y is less than 250. Okay. And the last thing that I want to add in is if mouse capital I is capital P pressed. Make sure that you have a capital I and a capital P or it won't work. And then make sure that you have all of your closing curly brackets to go with your opening curly brackets. So I'm going to uncomment, oops, undo that one. I'm gonna undo all of these. All right, so now I need to say what I want to happen if the mouse is pressed inside of this plus button. So, in the case that all of this is true, what I want to happen is I'm gonna have my R increase by 5. But if you want to use this to be a more exact tool, you could always change it to be 1. Okay, is this working, you guys? Let me know if you can see me. All right, hopefully you guys can see me. Let me know if you can or can't. Okay, great, awesome. Sorry you guys, that was super weird. I don't know why that happened. Sometimes when you're running the streaming software, it takes a lot out of your internet. So thank you for being patient with me while this was reloading. So, back to what I was saying. We ended with our button that's going to increase our red value. And for that, we said we wanted R to increase by 5. And I'm going to say that I want mouse X to equal 2000. And the reason that I do this, you'll see the difference that it makes. So now when I click this button, it will go up by 5. Okay, so when I press this button, it'll go up by just 5. If I were to get rid of this mouse X equals 2000, every time that I press, it would go up by a bunch. So that is not what I want. And by doing this, it changes the location of mouse X without actually moving your mouse. But then when you click again, it resets that X value to something that is in between the right numbers, 100 and 150. So that's just a tricky little way that you can get it so that your button goes up by exactly 5 every time that you click. And you'll see no matter how long I press and hold for, it's always going up by 5. That is not true if we get rid of the mouse X equals 2000. So then I am actually going to copy all of this, pasting it down below, and I'm going to change this to the red decrease. Okay, so I just copy and pasted all of this. I'm gonna go through and say, okay, my mouse X is still correct, but my mouse Y is what's incorrect. So I had mine where the greatest value is the lowest value is 275. So I'm gonna say if it's greater than 275, and if it's less than 325, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just change this to a minus sign. And that's a really quick, easy way to make this go by a lot faster, because otherwise, if you're just writing all of this out, it'll take you a really long time. But if you do think you need practice with buttons, this is a great way to practice. So you'll see now that it increases and decreases correctly. Okay, so now we have our red all increasing and decreasing, but what we're gonna wanna do is make our G and our B work as well. I only have about 8 minutes left, so I think that I'll be able to finish this. If not, we might just stick around for a few extra minutes, but that's okay. So I'm gonna paste this in there down below. All right, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change where it says red on these bottom two that I just pasted in. I'm gonna change them right away to green increase and green decrease. And the reason that I wanna change that right away is so that I don't get confused, like why do I have redundant code, which is what we just call it when there's the same thing written out more than once when it really only needs to be written once. So it'd be like if I wrote right below this, if I wrote r equals r plus 5, that's the exact same thing. It doesn't have to be there twice. So now what we need to do is we need to say, okay, let's go back, check everything, and make sure everything's right. So the first thing that I'm gonna notice is that my mouse X, it should be if mouse X is greater than 300 and less than 350, but my Y values are all right. So that's awesome. So I'm gonna change that here as well, down below. Okay, so now I changed my mouse X for my increase and my decrease, and I'm gonna wanna change these R's to G's. All right, and you wanna just double check everything's right. And if you notice that it's not working right, you probably just forgot to fix something that you had pasted. So no problem, you can always just go back and fix it. So there's also one other thing that we want to add in here, which I kind of forgot about. Nah, it's fine. We'll fix that later. Okay, so then now I'm going to copy this all again, pasting it down below, changing it immediately to blue instead of green. And then changing, remember the Y values are all right, the X values we're gonna have to fix. So those ones, for me at least, are 500 and 550. I'm changing that for the increase and for the decrease. And then the last thing that we need to fix is changing these to B instead of G. All right, so now my B will increase and decrease, and my R, G, well, my R and G were already set up and ready to go. So the one thing that we forgot to do, I'll just tell you what it is, and you can go through and fix it if you want to. There should be another nested conditional statement that just says if B is less than 255, then all of this happens. So that way, if it's greater than 255, it doesn't change at all. I'm just not going to fix it for all of these, but if you want it to be more polished and more exact, definitely do that. It's a really easy fix. You just want to make sure that you put it right underneath the mouse is pressed and make sure that you close out the curly bracket down here. But it'll still work regardless. And then the last thing that we want to do in here is go up to the very top of function draw, and we want to say background and then parentheses R, comma, G, comma, B. So now you'll notice that the background is black because if you have an R value of 0, a G value of 0, and a B value of 0, then the color of the background is going to be black because 0, 0, 0 is black. So you'll see as I increase the R, it gets more and more red. I could increase the green a little bit, increase the blue to get like a cool purple color. So this is great if you are trying to do a project and you're like, oh, what exact shade of purple do I want this drawing to be? So this is pretty fun to play around with, to just find like an exact color that you like or a few colors that you like. You'll notice that as you increase this past 255, it's not really going to change anything. So it probably would be a good idea to go through and add in that condition. I'm going to just do that since we have a little bit of time. So I'm going to go right here and I'm going to say if R is less than 255, making a curly bracket at the end and closing it out down below. And then that one, you can't really copy and paste it. You could if we had remembered to put it in, which I totally forgot, but that's okay. Sometimes that happens when you're coding. It's not that big of a deal. You'll get over it. Oops, 255. I guess you could copy it. You would just have to paste in the last curly bracket. But I'm just going to type it in. So if G is less than 255, all right, and then I'm going to do the same thing here. The one thing that you do have to remember if you're going to go through and fix all of these is that you want to make sure that you are closing out all of your curly brackets. It'll tell you pretty much immediately if you forgot to do that, so you'll know, but you want to just go through and fix that. Okay, so now we are all good to go. That is the fastest way that you guys will know to create a project like this. If you can think of another way to do it, feel free to code that and share it with us. Share any project that you have made with us. We really want to see it. We want to know what you guys are making and how you're changing these projects to be a little bit different. I'm going to see if anyone made a project for me to share. Oh, cool. So there's a few projects that were shared on here, so I will pull them up and share them with you guys in our last few minutes. Let us know if you have any special requests for projects, if there's anything that you're really interested in. All right, so this is awesome. This one was shared by Alex. Looks super good. Alex, if you aren't already in our master class, you should really join in with that. That one is going to be, it's a little bit more at this level. Maybe you got some help with this one, which is fine. But that's awesome. It looks really, really good. All right. So then, if you felt like this class was really easy for you, we do have a master class that we hold on Wednesdays. We're currently halfway through coding the Minesweeper project, and so you guys can feel free to join in with that. You might want to go back and watch the first half of the Minesweeper so that you're all caught up. Here's another project that Alex did. Super awesome. It's really unique. I have it pulled up on another screen too, and it always looks different, which I think is super awesome. And then it looks like Theo shared a project, or maybe his website. Awesome. All right, so this is a website from Theo if you guys want to go check it out. He was in our summer program. He's super awesome, really, really talented at this kind of stuff, so you can read a little bit about him. Check out some of his pages, his GitLab, Twitter, and he has his own YouTube videos too, trying to show us up. So you guys can go check him out. He's been... Oh yeah. Yeah, so feel free to go check him out. And then feel free to share your projects with us. We really want to see what you guys have been making. We want to see if it was something that we made in class together or just something else. And yeah, so let us know if you have any special requests for a project for us to do. Join us for our master class tomorrow if you're interested. That one's going to be from 2:30 to 4 o'clock. If you haven't already done the first half of Minesweeper, go go back into our YouTube channel and find it. We also have a ton of other projects that we have worked on pretty much since we've been in shelter in place. So go check those out. We worked really hard on all of those. We want you guys to use them, give us feedback on them, let us know if you like them or not, and let us know if you have any special requests for other projects that we should be posting. All right, so that's about it. So I hope that you guys are doing well, and I hope that you guys keep coding and trying new projects, and we will see you next week for our next class. All right, bye.